Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Noliana binti Marstan, metric number 285986. I will explain about introductions, demographic transitions. So, the growth of populations reflect the underlying forces of mortality and fertility rates. These forces determine economic activity such as capital, labor, and human capital, poverty, and equality. So what is the concept of demographic transitions? The concept is in understand how population dynamics change over time. The movement from high mortality and high fertility to low mortality and low fertility. Next, the future outlook on demographic trends and challenges. The first one is aging populations, which is many developed and some developing countries are facing aging populations. The issues such as increasing demand for healthcare service, pension plans, and elder care are driven by these evolutions. It also presents opportunity for businesses that assist senior citizens and the possibility of asset transfer between generations. And the second one is old bush. On the other hand, a large percentage of the population in many developing nations are young, causing a young bush if given access to quality healthcare, work opportunities, and education. And this group may encourage economic growth. The economic depressions and disruption in society might occur from failure to do so. And the third one is urbanizations, which is despite a larger population living in cities than even before, the trend towards urbanization is expected to continue. The change requires significant investment in housing, transportation, public service, and infrastructures to ensure sustainable urban development. And the fourth one is migrations, which is demographic trends will continue to be shaped by international migrations. In aging civilizations, migrant flows can alleviate labor shortage, but they also present integration, unity of society, and policy issues. And the last one is environmental sustainability, which is urbanization to be shaped. Urbanization and increasing populations demands natural resources and increased populations. Strategies for sustainable development are necessary for achieving a balance between preservation of environments and growth in populations. Next, the stage of demographic transitions. The first one is stage 1, high stationary, which is high mortality and high birth rates. Although birth rates were high in the past, we realized a minimum of population growth since mortality rates were equally high. The second one is stage 2, early expanding, which is mortality falls but birth rates are still high. During the second phases, the death rates begins to decline and the population's health slowly begin to improve. At this point in these transitions, the population size begins to increase quickly since fertility is still high despite the population's improved health. The third one is stage 3, late expanding, which is mortality is low and birth rate begin to fall. At this point, the birth rate starts to decrease, which is then causes the population growth rate to start declining. The fourth one is stage 4, low stationary, which is mortality and birth rates are low. Stage 4 is when rapid growth in populations end. At this point, there are already low mortality rates and the birth rates are comparable. The population's pyramid is now box-shaped, with younger cohort being quite comparable in size due to the low mortality rate at young age, and the cohort only rapidly reducing in size as people age. The last one is stage 5, declining. The level of fertility rates will determine population increase in the future. Changes over the course of socioeconomic modernizations are described by the demographic transitions. On the other hand, the population will eventually decrease if the fertility rate remains below 2 children per woman. Next, I will explain about analysis of population growth rates for the world, India and Japan from 2030 to 2023. So the world population growth rate has shown a gradual decline over the years. In 2013, the growth rate was approximately plus 1.2%, and by 2023, it had decreased to around plus 0.6%. This trend indicates a slowing pace of population growth worldwide. So next, let's look at India. India growth rate was around plus 1.2%. slightly higher than the global average. Over the past decade, India's growth rate has decreased to about plus 0.9% in 2023. Despite this decline, India growth rate remains constantly higher than the global average, making it the dominant contributor to global population growth among the regions compared. In contrast, Japan has experienced a negative population growth rate throughout the decade. Starting at around negative 0.2% in 2013, it declined to approximately negative 0.3% in 2023. The negative growth rate highlights Japan's demographic challenge, including in aging populations and low birth rates. Among these regions, India stands out as the dominant one in terms of population growth rates. Despite the overall decline, India's growth rate remains higher than the global average and significantly higher than Japan's negative growth rates. Next, fertility rate. From the world perspective, over the past decade, the world's fertility rate has shown a gradual decline, decreasing from 2.5 births per woman in 2013 to about 2.3 births per woman in recent years. This reflects global trends towards smaller family size and potential aging populations. In 2013, India's fertility was around 2.5 births per woman, similar to global average. Over the years, India's fertility rate has decreased to 2.2 births per woman. Despite this decline, India's fertility rates remain relatively high, which is significant for one of the world's most populous countries. In contrast, Japan presents a different demographic scenario. Japan's fertility rate has been consistently lower than the global average, starting at the 1.4 births per woman in 2013 and declining slightly to around 1.3 births per woman. This low fertility rates contribute to Japan's aging population and potential labor shortage. In conclusion, India has the dominant fertility rate despite its decline, maintaining a higher rate compared to Japan. This higher fertility in India continue to contribute significantly to its population growth. Next, birth rates. The world's birth rate has shown a steady decline, decreasing from 90.89% birth per 1,000 people in 2013 to 60.33% births per 1,000 people recently. This decline reflects global trends such as improved access to contraception, higher education levels, and changing society norms. In 2013, India's birth rate was around 0.06% birth rate 1,000 people, similar to global average. Over the years, India's birth rates have decreased to 16.15% birth per 1,000 people. Despite this decline, India's birth rates remains relatively high, which is significant for one of the world's most populous countries. In contrast, Japan presents a different scenario. Japan's birth rate has been consistently lower than the global average, starting at 8.01 birth rates per 1,000 people in 2013 and declining slightly to around 6.03 births per 1,000 people. These persistent low birth rates contribute to Japan's aging population and potential future labor shortage. In conclusion, India has the dominant birth rate despite its decline, maintaining a higher rate compared to Japan. This higher birth rate in India continues significantly to its population growth. Next, death rate. From 2013 to 2023, the world death rate shows slight fluctuations. It starts at 7.55% in 2013, dipped slightly to 7.47% by 2019, peaked at 8.77% in 2021, and then settled at 7.62% in 2023. The peak in 2021 could be attributed to the global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. India's death rate has remained relatively stable over the years, starting at 6.86% in 2013 and ending at 6.61% in 2023. However, there was a noticeable increase to 9.26% in 2021, likely due to severe impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Japan's death rate has been consistently higher than the global average and India's rates. It started at 10.24% in 2013 and increased to 12.26% in 2023. The steady rise can be attributed to Japan's aging population, which has a higher mortality rate. The dominant trends observed in the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, which caused a spike in death rates globally, with notable increase in both India and Japan. That's all from me.
Hi, my name is Nur Shafifa Binti Hanafi and my matrix number is 286815. Today I will be discussing the historical demographic transition of Japan that mirrors the country's transformation from a pre-industrial society to a modern industrial power. Demographic transition refers to the shift from high birth and death rate to lower birth and death rate as the society industrialized. Japan's demographic journey can be divided into three main stages, influenced by a historical event and socio-economic challenge. The story began in the Meiji era between 1868 to the 1912. This was a period of rapid modernization as Japan transitions from feudal agrarian economy to an industrial nation. During this time period, improvement in healthcare, sanitation, and education led to a significant decline in the death rate. However, birth rate remained high, resulting in steady population growth. This era laid the foundations of Japan's demographic transition as the modernization and industrial began to reshape in the society. Next, we move to the Taisho and early Showa periods, spanning from 1912 to 1945. Japan's population continued to grow as industrialization expanded and living standard improved. But this period wasn't without challenge. Urbanization accelerated, creating the pressure on resources in both rural and urban areas. This pressure, combined with the global events such as World War II, would set the stage for a major demographic shift for the following decades. After World War II, Japan experienced a baby boom in the late 1940s, driven by a post-war optimism. However, this was followed by a sharp decline in birth rates starting from the 1950s. Urbanization, improved education, and legalization of contraception and abortion contributed to this decline. By the time 1970s, Japan had completed its demographic transition with both birth and death rate stabilizing at a low level. Families become smaller, reflecting the country's growing urban and modern lifestyle. Next, the phase of Japan demographic transition, which reflect the country's evolution from a feudal society to a global economic powerhouse, starting from the pre-industrial era to the present day. For the phase 1, pre-industrial and early industrial era, during the pre-industrial and early industrial period, during this time, Japan was largely an agrarian society characterized by high birth rates and death rates. Family managed resources carefully, sometimes using traditional practice like mabiki, which is method to unalive the child, or infanticide, which limit the population growth. However, as Japan began to industrialize in the late 19th centuries, during the Meiji era, improvement in healthcare, sanitation, and food production led to the decline in the death rates. Despite this change, birth rates remained high and Japan's population began to grow steadily. This period staged for Japan's modernization and its demographic transformations. For the phase 2, urbanization and modernization starting from the post-war era between 1945 to 1970s. This was a time of a rapid urbanization and modernization which impacted population trends. After World War II, Japan experienced a brief baby boom in the late 1940s. However, this was quickly followed by a sharp decline in the birth rate due to urbanizations, increased access to education and legalization, contraceptions, and abortions. By the 1970s, Japan has stabilized its population growth, completing the traditional demographic transition from high birth and death rates to low one. Smaller family size and modern living arrangements have become the norms. Next, Japan demographic transitions have profoundly impacted its economy and social structures. Japan's journey from the agrarian society to the one of the most advanced economy in the world has presented unique challenges and opportunities. For the economic impact, Japan's aging populations have led to a labor shortage in the key sectors such as manufacturing, healthcare, and agriculture. With fewer people in the workforce, maintaining economic productivity has become a significant challenge. To address this, Japan has heavily invested in automations and robotics, becoming a global leader in this field. While this technology have helped to reduce the dependency on human labor, they cannot fully replace the needs of workers, especially in elder care. Additionally, Japan's public finances are under immense strain. Rising healthcare, pensions, and social service costs for an aging population has sparked debates about sustainability. To alleviate this burden, the governments have implemented policies like raising the retirement age and encouraging seniors to stay in the workforce. For the social impact, families, dynamic, and gender role, which is urbanization accelerated the shift from the traditional multi-general household to a nuclear family. Financial constraints and changing lifestyle have made it difficult for families to provide the same level of care to their elderly relatives. Additionally, Japan's rigid work culture and deeply ingrained gender norms have made it challenging for women to balance career and families' responsibilities, contributing to consistently low birth rates. For the global significance, Japan's demographic transition has accelerated technological innovation, particularly in robotics and automation. Robotics caregivers are now assisting the elderly, addressing some of the challenge posed by a shrinking labor force. These advancements not only benefit the Japanese, but also serve as a model for other countries facing similar demographic challenge. In summary, Japan's demographic transitions has reshaped the economic and social structure while it faced significant challenge. Japan's leadership in technology and robotics offer hope for a sustainable solution.
Hi, my name is Natasha Azira. My matrix number is 286740. Today I will be presenting about demographic transition in developing countries. So, India is in the stage of the demographic transition where birth and death rates are falling and population growth is slowing down. The total fertility rate has dropped to 2.0, which is below the replacement level of 2.1. This decline is due to urbanization, better education for women, and access to the birth control. However, there are big differences between regions. Southern states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu have much lower birth rates, while northern states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar still have high birth rates because of the poverty, less education, and weaker healthcare. India's young population, 40% under the age of 25, is the strength now, but could become a challenge as the population ages in the future. As India moves through stage 3, there are 3 key challenges. First, gender equality. Women are getting better education and more control over family planning, but they still face barriers in getting jobs and leadership roles. Some states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu are doing better, but many women in other regions still face discrimination. Second, regional differences. Southern and western states are doing well in reducing birth rates thanks to better education and healthcare. Northern states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are struggling with higher birth rates due to poverty and lack of resources. The third one is population momentum. Even though birth rates are falling, a large number of young people born earlier will still have children. This keeps the population growing for a while, especially in regions with higher birth rates. Next is socio-economic impact. Indian population changes affect many areas. In education, more young people mean more school and college are needed. The focus must be on making education accessible to everyone and improving its quality. Second one is in healthcare. India is facing both old and new challenges, disease from poor living condition and lifestyle related to illness, like diabetes. As people live longer, better elder care will also be needed. Third one, in cities, the growing population is creating problems with housing, sanitation, and transportation. Investment are needed to improve living condition and infrastructure. In short, Indian population changes bring opportunities for progress but also challenges. We must invest in education, healthcare, and service to ensure a better future for everyone.
Hi, my name is Sasabe binti Nishpude. My metric number is 287626. So I'm going to explain about a comparative analysis between developed and developing economies. Developed countries are known to have surpassed the developing and underdeveloped countries in the terms of population structure and economic performance. The key reason is that developed countries are expected to achieve their objectives by having an ideal economic structure and a desire to modernize their economies and worldwide reputation. Developing economies are still in the transition of demographic and economic changes. Thus, they may have to compare to developed countries to apply adjustment to their current models and therefore achieve their expected economic goals. According to a comparison of life expectancy at birth by the United Nations, Japan was the top list, claiming the first place, while India ranks 139 in the worldwide ranking. As for the infant mortality rates, Japan ranks second last at 220 and India ranks at 50. Over the last 60 years, mortality rates in developing countries versus the developed countries such as India and Japan have differed significantly. Japan has made significant progress in terms of lowering mortality indexes, whereas India is still trying to keep up with the rest of the world in terms of lowering some criteria such as child death rates. Context of birth rates in developing countries such as Japan are generally low, which are around 1.3 children per woman, that shows below the replacement limit of 2.1 children per woman. Factors contribute to this tendency such as the wide range of education, especially for women who frequently place a higher priority on their jobs and personal growth than on having children early or frequently. In addition, having access to good family planning and contraception allows people to manage their fertility rates better. Living in cities is generally connected with higher living costs, limited space, and lifestyle that are inappropriate for large family. Thus, countries such as Japan facing those issues due to population reduction. Countries like India have significant higher birth rates, which frequently pass the replacement level. This is due to the several factors, including inadequate access to contraception, lower educational levels, particularly among the women, cultural and religious traditions that promote larger families. Also, in agriculture or resource-dependent economies, children frequently play an important part in household labor, contributing to increase the birth. In terms of death rates, developed economies benefit from modern and strong healthcare system, with access to clean water and nutritious food, all of which contribute to lower mortality rates. The majority of deaths are caused by non-communicable diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, indicating that these countries have longer life expectancies. For example, countries such as Japan face rising healthcare costs and social challenges as their elderly population grows. The high death rates in developing countries for treatable reasons such as accidents and surgical conditions, maternity and infant complications show the scale and complexity of the healthcare quality challenge. Poor quality care can result in various negative effects such as unnecessary medical term suffering, persistent symptoms, loss of function and confidence in healthcare system. Poor quality healthcare system have negative economic consequences, including resource waste and fatal spending. Since over the last century, the population growth rates have followed a diverse path driven by the factors such as fertility rates, mortality rates, and migration patterns. Population growth in Japan and India shows significant differences between developed and developing economies. Since the middle of the 20th century, Japan's population growth rate has gradually declined. Japan's population growth rate was positive, but it began to fall after 1970. By the start of 21st century, Japan's population growth are negative, implying a decrease in population size. Factors such as decreased birth rates, an aging population, and limited immigration have all contributed to this trend. India's population growth rate was consistently strong during the mid to the late 20th century. Between 1950 and 1980, there was a tremendous population increase driven by the high fertility rates and lowering mortality rate as a result of advance in healthcare and sanitation. In the 1980s, India's population growth rate started to drop, although at a slower rate than Japan's. This slowdown was influenced by the efforts to promote family planning, improve maternal and child health, increase contraception education, and awareness.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aini Syaira binti Muhammad Sa and my matrix number is 289666. And I'm going to explain about factors influencing the transition process. The first one is about the industrialization, which in Japan, industrialization took off during the Meiji Restoration and surge after World War II. This created urban jobs, better incomes, and a focus on quality of life. Also, families chose to have fewer children, completing their demographic shift by the 1970s. Meanwhile, in India, however, has seen uneven industrial growth. Cities like Bengaluru and Mumbai are thriving hubs, but much of the population still relies on agriculture in rural areas. These rural communities tend to favor larger families for economic reasons. slowing the overall transition. In terms of healthcare improvement, Japan has introduced universal healthcare in 1961, which helped life expectancy rise to over 84 years. Improved healthcare systems and living standards drastically reduce mortality and birth rates. While in India, healthcare advancements have increased life expectancy from 41 years in 1950 to 70 years today. And programs like Ayushman Bharat have improved healthcare access, but rural areas still face challenges such as higher maternal mortality and fertility rates. As these both countries prioritize their education system, which in Japan they prioritize universal education after World War II. This empowered women, delayed marriage, and reduced fertility to just 1.36 births per woman by 2023. And in India has improved its literacy rate to 77%, but gender inequality persists, especially in rural areas where female literacy is still low. Initiatives like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao are helping bridge this gap. Next, we are going to discuss about the policy and cultural impact. And the first one is the policies. In Japan, they use family planning to lower fertility rates early on, but now faces challenges like aging population and labor shortage. Despite support programs, cultural resistance to immigration complicates the issue. Meanwhile, in India has also worked on family planning since 1950s, reducing fertility from 5.9 children per woman to 2.0. But however, rural traditions favoring large families and male children slow the process. When it comes to cultural impact, there is always a cultural norms, where in Japan, high costs of living and societal expectations around careers and parenting discourage large families. And while in India, rural areas still see large families as a source of financial security, though urban areas are shifting towards smaller families.
Hi, my name is Shafiq with matrix number 286885. So for my part, I will present 7.0 policy recommendations. So the first part is 7.1 lessons from developed nations for developing economies. The first one is healthcare and social security systems. Japan's universal healthcare and long-term care insurance serve as model for countries like India to ensure affordable care for aging populations. So India should develop and expand a social safety net with a focus on affordable healthcare for all age groups. Secondly, increasing workforce participation. Japan's flexible work arrangements, parental leave, and childcare policies boosted female workforce participation. So India should implement policies to promote gender equality and encourage more women and older adults to join the workforce. Number three is lifelong education and skill development. Japan emphasizes vocational training and STEM education to maintain workforce competitiveness. So India should integrate vocational education into mainstream schooling and foster industry economic partnerships. So the fourth is immigration policies. Japan attracts skilled foreign labor to address labor shortages due to its aging population. So India should develop strategy to attract skilled immigrants and leverage remittances from a young workforce abroad. Number five is rural revitalization. Japan's regional revitalization strategies, such as rural tax incentives and infrastructure, help mitigate rural depopulation. So India should decentralize economy activities and enhance infrastructure in rural areas to retain youth and reduce urban migration. The other points are innovative healthcare solutions, sustainable financial system for aging populations, public awareness campaigns, urban planning for aging populations, and the last one is long-term visions and policy planning. Next, 7.2, global collaborations and sustainable development, India and Japan. So demographic challenges like aging populations and rapid urbanizations require global cooperations. India and Japan can work together to develop sustainable, inclusive solutions. So the first one is in terms of healthcare innovations. Japan advancements in robotic caregiving and telemedicine can be adapted in India to improve elderly care, especially in remote areas. So, for example, collaborating on healthcare technologies to address aging populations. Secondly, education and skill development. The India-Japan Skills Transfer Initiative helps Indian youth gain expertise in Japanese manufacturing techniques, especially in robots and automations. So, for example, join training programs to bridge skill gaps and prepare India's workforce for high-tech industries. The third one is sustainable urban planning. Japan's compact city model reduces environmental impact and improves accessibility. India can apply similar strategies in cities like Bengaluru and Pune, focusing on green spaces and public transport. For example, sustainable urban planning for more inclusive and accessible cities. So the first one is labor migration. Japan's Technical Intern Training Program, TITP, provides skills development for foreign workers benefiting India's labor force. So for example, strengthening migration programs to transfer skill while addressing workforce shortage in both countries. And number 5 is resource management and clean tech. Japan's expertise in recycling and clean energy can guide India in achieving its sustainability goals. So, for example, joint projects in renewable energy and sustainable resource management. So, other points are global health equity, inclusive economics growth, and also joint research. So, next, the conclusion. In conclusion, Japan as a developed nation faces an aging population, addressing it with policies on fertility, labor participation, and robotics. In India, as a developing economy, benefits from a youthful population and struggles with disparity in healthcare, education, and gender equality. By focusing on innovation, equitable growth, and collaboration, both nations can tackle their demographic challenges and support global stability. So that's all from our group. Thank you so much.